Hi, class. Welcome. It's Dr. Lindner. We are still on the topic of organic compounds. In some previous videos, we already talked quite a bit about carbohydrates. We spoke about proteins. We spoke about lipids. We're going to be talking about nucleic acids now, and then we'll talk about high energy compounds. So the topic now is nucleic acids. And when we think of nucleic acids, you're going to be thinking right away of two things. You're going to be thinking of DNA and RNA. The Na is for nucleic acid. The D is for deoxyribose. So DNA is deoxyribose nucleic acid, and RNA is ribose nucleic acid. So the DNA forms the genetic code in the nuclei of the body cells, and it regulates most of the cell's activity. Okay, but it forms the genetic code. It has the template, all the instructions for what type of protein should be made, but it's the RNA that actually guides the protein formation, and that's responsible for that. So nucleic acids, these are large organic molecules, right? We're still on organic compounds. They're found in the nucleus, which store and process information at the molecular level. So what does DNA do? What is the function of deoxyribose nucleic acid? So it's going to determine the inherited characteristics of an individual. It's going to direct protein synthesis. It controls enzyme production, and it controls metabolism. What is ribonucleic acid? It controls all the intermediate steps in protein synthesis. Okay, so this may have the instructions. This is actually doing it. So when we look at the structure of nucleic acids, the DNA and RNA, these are strings of nucleotides. So now what are nucleotides? These are the building blocks of both DNA and RNA. And nucleotides are going to have three parts. They're going to have a pentose sugar, and the pentose sugar is either going to be the deoxyribose or ribose. So that's one of the three molecular parts. The second is the phosphate group. Remember, a phosphate group is PO4, right? PO4. And nitrogenous bases, AG, TC. So it's adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine, and uracil. So these, the uracil replaces this in RNA. Otherwise, the A and the G get grouped together in DNA in DNA, and the T and the C get grouped together in DNA. But in RNA, the U, the uracil, is going to replace the T in the pairings. Okay, and that's what actually what it says here. So the DNA is double-stranded, whereas the RNA is single-stranded. Right? So DNA is double-stranded, and the bases form hydrogen bonds. That's what holds them together. And we don't want these hydrogen bonds being broken, because that's how you damage your DNA. Sometimes the RNA can bind to itself, but it's usually single-stranded. So it's the DNA that forms that and has the structure of the double helix. Now there are complementary base pairs. Okay. and the purines pair with the pyrimidines. So DNA, we're going to have adenine, and that's going to pair with thymine. And then we have cytosine, and that's going to pair with guanine. That's how it works in DNA. And in RNA, the T, the thymine, is replaced with uracil. Okay, so here we are. We're going to contrast DNA and RNA, but let's look at DNA first. They're huge molecules. They contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And each gene of our genetic material is a piece of DNA that controls the synthesis of a specific protein. And a molecule of DNA is a chain of nucleotides. Again, what makes up nucleotides? We have three things that make them up. Just a quick review. We have the nitrogenous bases, AG, adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. Then we have pentose sugar. It's either ribose or deoxyribose. And then we have the PO4, which is the phosphate group. Okay, so if we look up at top, over here, we're going to see here's the phosphate group. Here's the deoxyribose. And then you got thymine and adenine. Down here, you have phosphate group. You have another pentose sugar. You got cytosine and guanine. Okay, so, and what you're looking at in the double helix off to the right, you can see it's double stranded. You can see the C and the G, the cytosine and guanine. You can see the thymosin and adenine. You can see cysteine and guanine, and it's CG, TNA, CG, TNA. And you can see that the hydrogen bonds are the bonds that hold them together. So DNA is the double helix, and its main function is in the storage and transfer of the information that's essential for the synthesis of proteins. Okay, it's the main function is the storage and the transfer of the info that's needed for the synthesis of proteins. The synthesis of the proteins are going to be carried out by the RNA. All right, again, we have the phosphate group, pentose sugar, and a nitrogenous base. And the pentose sugar can either be a deoxyribose or a ribose. Here are the nitrogenous bases. Here are the pyrimidines, cytosine, thymine, and uracil. And then we have two purines, adenine, and guanine. So you could see the cytosine, the adenine, and guanine, these are both in DNA and RNA. Both of them. Okay, when you look at the thymine, it's only in DNA, and in RNA, the thymine is going to be replaced by uracil. So the deoxyribose nucleic acid is going to determine our characteristics, the color of our eyes, the color of our hair, what blood type are you going to be? It affects aspects of body structure and function because the DNA encodes the information needed to build the proteins. And we know DNA is used, all these shows like CSI New York and CSI Miami and Law and Order. They're always looking at DNA to identify criminals or victims or determine, who's the parent of a child. And all you need is a strand of hair. You need a drop of semen, a little bit of blood. It seems like, DNA could be found in all body tissues. So here it is again. You can see the double helix. The DNA is made of two strands twisted in a spiral staircase. We call that the double helix. And each strand consists of nucleotides that are bound together, right? The hydrogen bond binds them together. And each nucleotide consists of deoxyribose sugar bound to a phosphate group and one of the nitrogenous bases, adenine and thymine, that's the A and the T, guanine and cytosine, that's the C and the G. The nitrogenous bases pair together through what type of bond? The hydrogen bond to form the steps, right? These are the steps of the ladder. Those are all hydrogen bonds. And adenine pairs with thymine, and guanine pairs with cytosine. Now, that's enough on DNA. What about RNA? It's going to differ from DNA because the RNA is single-stranded. It's a ribose sugar, not a deoxyribose. And uracil is the nitrogenous base that replaces thymine. That's pretty important. Okay. Now, the types of RNA within the cell, each with a specific function, but they're all geared to perform protein synthesis. Okay. And the three different types are messenger RNA, ribosomal RNA, and transfer RNA. Okay. The RNA, if we look at the three types, you have messenger, ribosomal, and transfer. So the messenger carries the instruction for the polypeptide synthesis from the nucleus to the ribosomes. That's the messenger RNA. The ribosomal RNA, that makes up the ribosomes. And then you got transfer RNA that carries the amino acids to the ribosome and matches them to code the mRNA message, right? The transfer RNA matches the amino acid to the messenger RNA to help make proteins. It's kind of like the interpreter between the nucleic acid language and the amino acid language, right? It's translating that language. So to finish up, if we do a quick comparison between the DNA and RNA, we know that if we look at the nitrogenous bases, the DNA has the adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. And notice that's in blue because in the RNA, the thymine is taken out and it's replaced with uracil. You still have adenine, cytosine, and guanine. The sugar in the nucleotides, in the DNA, it's deoxyribose, and RNA, it's ribose. What are the number of strands? In DNA, it's a double helix, and in RNA, it's single-stranded. The nitrogenous base pairing, the adenine with the thymine, the guanine with the cytosine, that's in DNA, adenine with the uracil, and guanine with cytosine in RNA. So uracil is the one that substitutes thymine. All right, DNA is self-replicating, and RNA is made by using DNA as a blueprint. The function of the DNA, it encodes the information that's needed to make protein. The RNA carries the genetic code and actually makes the proteins. In terms of types of DNA, there's nuclear DNA and mitochondrial DNA. We get all of our mitochondria from mom. Okay. And the types of RNA are the messenger RNA, transfer RNA, and ribosomal RNA.